awakening. Have you felt it? You are listening to Dark Matter Radio with your host, Ronnie. This is Ronnie McLean for Dark Matter Radio, and coming to you live on the Breakaway cruise ship. Just got finished seeing about 6 different islands here in the Caribbean, and very important trip. It was a very historical trip to see exactly some of the things that are going on the island, on all the islands. We went to Tortola, Puerto Rico, St. Martin. We went to Aruba, Jamaica, Cozumel, Mexico. We're also going to be going into New Orleans and also talk to some great people over there in New York. So this is part of the I.N.N.A tour that happened last summer to get a gauge on what was going on in so-called Black America as well. Also, this tour that we took down in the South, I promised I would be doing a tour for the Caribbean and did that as well. Very interesting things that are happening all over the place. And one of the things I wanted to do is make sure that we got a show on here for Dark Matter Radio, and to let you know how things are going in what I call the carbon-based world in this system. And it's very interesting. So what I want to do is just go over a little bit of the things that I've seen over there in Tortola, Puerto Rico, and a few other different places. As I'm having my early morning coffee, it's about 6 o'clock in the morning, and very beautiful, very beautiful. The seas are nice and calm, the sun is rising. Been a long time since I've seen the sunrise over the ocean. Very, very beautiful out here in the Caribbean seas, and you can imagine how the first explorers from Europe actually felt when they were allowed to come out of Europe and see all kinds of things that were going on over here. And my God, did they do such a great thing. So I'm going to start with the island of Tortola, and then get into a few of the other things a little bit later on. But so on the island of Tortola, again, they all admit that slavery happened. And again, I just wanted to recap people, just to let you know that, again, the indigenous nations of North America, Dark Matter Radio, Ronnie McLean, New Thunder, we all of us, African Americans and Africans, all of us are now coming awake of understanding who and what we are as beings of people, and making sure that we as beings of people have the understanding and the knowledge to be able to track our ancestry back to our original state. That's one of the reasons why I did that radio program, and the program, if you haven't seen it, you should see it, about the African American Y chromosome and how it upset the evolutionary timescale, and showing that the so-called African American ain't African at all. In fact, he's a carbon-based being, most likely from North America, that originated here on this side of the earth. And it's a very serious program. A lot of the anthropologists try to link the African Americans back to the Aborigines of Australia, which is something I did not mention in the show, but I wanted to let you know that that is now blown out of the water, because our DNA goes back much further than that. So when you talk about the islands and the Caribbeans and the things that are going on in that nature, it's very important to understand that, you know, the whole story about slavery, how it's perpetuated out there, and how it was given to the people in the world over a 500-year period, and how it changed the minds of how people feel and where they are from, their heritage, their families, etc. So, starting with the question of Buck Wyland had put out there about, you just need to ask where your grandparents say you were from. So this is one of the things. A lot of people didn't want to go on tape, didn't want to go on film because it would affect their jobs in this aspect of things. But I asked a lot of people that question, Carbonese beings, so-called black people of the Caribbean. And they all acknowledged that, they were from slavery, just that and the other thing. But when I asked them, I said, where does your grandparents say that you're from? They get very quiet. They don't really have an answer for that. And they say Africa. And then I said, well, what part of Africa did they say that you come from? And basically, they don't have an answer for that at all. I would say the majority of them that are island-based, that even those who are indigenous, when I say indigenous, those who are born on the island, I have no clue as to where they are from Africa. No clue whatsoever. So it's important for us to understand that when we ask those questions, I asked those questions on Totola, I asked those questions over there on St. Martin, I asked those questions on Aruba, I also asked the questions in Jamaica, and a lot of the Jamaicans, if you're listening right now, and Haitians, you need to understand that we have to really go back and relook at our ancestry, because a lot of the slaves that they talk about actually came from the Americas, what we now know as the Americas. And as we know right now in North America, and this is the reason why I'm concentrating on North America, is because we know that over a 500-year period, less than 300,000 slaves actually from Africa actually entered into the Americas itself. And then a good portion of those slaves were actually recycled, quote-unquote Indians, original indigenous beings from the Americas, and that was sent over to Europe, and then subsequently sent back in, or sent over into Africa, and then from Africa recycled back into the Americas. So it's really interesting when you look at all the conditions and look at the mindset as to how the people are thinking and where they're from. They have absolutely no connection to the land, none whatsoever, and they have no connection to the people upon which they actually really come from, which is, if you're part of the African Americans, an African group, indigenous nations in North America, Aboriginal, the original Aboriginals, original indigenous beings of North America or the Americas, you know that what we espouse is that we need to have a connection with our land. The reason why we don't is because they took our identity away from us and put us somewhere where we never belonged in the first place, which was Africa. Nothing against Africans. Africa is a beautiful place. Haven't been there yet. I will be going. But I thought it's most important for me to be able to see what's going on in my own land, all over my own continent. So this is the reason why I've been all over South America, now all over the Caribbean, and seen just about every island on the Caribbean. Also in North America, up in Canada, everywhere. So I've seen just about all of our people, asked them all the same questions, and have a really good understanding now exactly what's going on with our mindset and how this system is has brainwashed us into thinking, all of us, that we're from someplace else when we're actually not. So on these islands, they're beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And most of the people are saying that, they're from Africa, but they have absolutely no idea from Africa where they spawned, or, a lot about the slave trade in terms of where they came from all these different islands. So when you look at the populations of the islands, the populations are majority foreigners, and the indigenous people are fewer and far between in terms of, they're all over the place, but when I say majority foreigners, all of them come from Europe, they come from India, they come from Arabia, Middle East, they own all the businesses, right? They own the majority of the businesses, I would say. And then those that own the majority of the business, they hire the indigenous people of the land to do the work for them, to work in their stores. So, even in all these different places were pretty much basically the same, which I felt very, very disturbing. And again, it's all about survival. It's about trying to make sure that they have money for the next day or the money for the next month. A lot of these places are very expensive for them, and the areas that they live in are not even equal to the areas where everybody else lives. There's a lot of poverty, a lot of poorness, a lot of people trying to do the right thing, a lot of people trying to raise their families. No different from what is going on in North America. People do not own their economy, and a lot of people don't even own their politics. And so the lesson that we learned from South Africa, which is very important, is that you can get your politics, but if you don't have your economy, you don't own anything. And that's one of the reasons why they're still going through a lot of craziness over there. But in all these islands, what I found out is that none of them own their own economy. Even though Jamaica is an independent state, a lot of these islands are now also independent from Britain, France, Dutch, Spain. Here within the recent 40 years, 30 years, and they still hold a lot of the European systematic mentalities in terms of how they govern themselves. And again, the economy is not theirs. It's very, very, very crazy on how the economy just isn't what it should be. I mean, no different from, again, the black people in North America. Black people seems like all over the continental North America plate all seem to be in the same type of situation and condition. Although, a lot of them can't see through a lot of the racism. A lot of them do. One lady I did talk to, she told me, I was asking her the questions and stuff like that. And she says, "Are you on vacation here?" She said, "Well, you'll see a lot of stuff, but just make sure you enjoy yourself." Right? People are awake. They understand. They see what's going on. But it's really important for us to understand that we all need to be awake. None of them that I talked to ever heard of African Americans and African. None of them ever heard of indigenous nations in North America or any of the indigenous nations, original indigenous nations in North America. None of them heard of the concept that they're not from Africa and that they are actually descendants of the people from what we now call the Americas. None of them heard the concepts or the understanding of the genome that we have, especially the Y genome, that we here in North America have the oldest genome on Earth that's ever been recorded ever by over 300,000 years. And which was again very disturbing to me because I know the Dark Matter Radio program is heard pretty much all over the world. But and a lot of the people over there in Caribbean are listening to it, but it's just not enough. So we have to do an awful lot more, and makes me understand that I have to up my efforts as well to do what needs to be done. And I know a lot of people are doing a lot, but not only do we have to educate our own people, but we're going to have to bring it mainstream. So when the people who are listening to this show, I want you to understand that there is a serious disconnect between this system and the old system upon which was torn down by the Asiatic and European peoples of the world. They did a really great disservice and harm, killing off over 100 million people. And some people I've been talking to even think it's even more than 100 million, which is really depressing. And, what we had here in this North American plate, continental plate, North America, South America, the Americas, continental plate, was something that surpassed anything else that was in the world. It was an outright paradise here. And all these islands, the Caribbean islands, all of them are outright paradises. Some of them are just all rocks. Can't live on. But they made, people were living there. They were living all over the place. And it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing. So the question is that, being that people really don't have an understanding of where they're from and how this whole entire slave trade thing happened, a great education must take place in our nations. A great education must take place in other nations. And we have to really get serious about who and what quote-unquote black people are, and where they actually really come from, and their history. Because, you know, anything that happens in the Grand Canyon is their history. Anything that happens in the Great Plains of the Americas is carbon-based history. Anything that happens in the Great Mississippi Valleys or New York, the Great Californias, Calif, is carbon-based history. Anything that happened down there in the Great Basins of Mexico and what they now call Panama, Belize, and Honduras, all those people down there that you see, most of them aren't original indigenous beings. They're created beings by Hispanics. That's why they call them Hispanics or Spanish, as they mixed and brought all kinds of people into this to the side of the world. A lot of the things that happened down there in South America, or what we now call Brazil, and all these other jurisdictional lines that were made up by the Europeans, such as they did in Africa and in the Middle East and everywhere else, are carbon-based history. All of the things that happened on the Caribbean islands, we need to know that when they first got there, what they seen was carbon-based beings. They seen black people. That's what they seen. And it was us. And they admitted that the original inhabitants of the lands, and when they got there, they either chased them off, they either fled, or they killed them all, or they captured them and put them into slavery, right? And again, they also admit that when they got there, the place was beautiful. And what they began to start doing was doing the coral and taking all their resources and doing everything that they wanted to do with them. Very violent people, and we weren't very violent people. And I don't think we had to be for maybe tens of thousands of years. And the type of veracity of this stuff that happened. I mean, some of them, they even called them giants. And remember when they first came over here, the Europeans, a lot of these Asiatic people, when they first came over here, were allowed to come over here, they were short, all right? I mean, a tall person was 5'7", 5'6". So, you know, a lot of our people were anywhere between, 5 feet, shorter, all the way up to 7 feet, and those would be giants, right? And possibly even taller, some of the people, and there are natural elements without what they're being done now. But there has to be what's happening and what has happened to the black people of North America and of the Americas. It's crazy. So there's a question that I want to pose before I leave here today is, how do you correct a wrong that was so wrong without hurting and destroying the people that supposedly had nothing to do with it? Because this has to be corrected. But when you begin to start correcting something in the system that is so powerful, I mean, this is a powerful system that we're dealing with. This ain't no joke. This is a powerful system. And it's a system that has encompassed everything on this planet, it seems like. And with all the different questions that we have, and we don't have time. When I say we, the carbon-based beings, the original indigenous beings, the Aboriginal people of the Americas, the real Aboriginal people of the Americas, don't have time to fight amongst each other. And I've seen a lot of that, going on in the Caribbean as well. I mean, we're the same everywhere. We're just trying to fight for survival, and that's how they got us. And they got us all in survival mode, and it's really, really, really crazy. Although this place is so beautiful, so wonderful, and the people are beautiful and wonderful, and they all treated me with such great respect. I have a very great disdain. Although the society that we're in right now, the system that we're in right now is powerful and has done such great things, I believe that the system that we came out of, the original indigenous Aboriginal system that we came out of, is a better system, and we all need to really get back into it. So, a lot of work to be done, a lot of things that are happening out here on the islands, a lot of good people, but they're enslaved still, like all of us. In a system where we have to kowtow to white society and make sure that that society is taken care of as we build them up. It's a hard message, a hard thing to come across. It's very difficult to understand, but we have absolutely really no power in this system at all. and it's meant to be that way. And the only question is now is, as we begin to start rising, and as we begin to start coming of a mentality as to knowing what we are, and as we beginning to start to understanding all of the science and all this information about our people, as we rise, who is going to step forward to be able to help educate all of us and not just one of us? So keep that in mind. This is Randy McLean for Dark Matter Radio, and also for our new Thunder NO Live. We love you, and the world has to have another understanding of who and what so-called black people are in the Americas and in the Caribbean, because they are not what you think they are, not what you've been taught. Have a great day and great grand rising to us all.